Hello everyone, welcome back to What a Comedian. So far life has been pretty good for me. School has started, so it's not that bad right now, but it's sort of ramping up. I'm not taking too many hard classes, so mainly I'm just focused on trying to keep up with all my extracurriculars, keep going with my podcasts, and just really getting my life together, Common apps, college apps are really a big deal right now. And I'm not too stressed about it, but it's getting there. But, I recently I've been slowing down and asking for interviews because I'm actually so busy because of school and work and doing marching band, doing golf, and trying to do this. It's just a lot of work, but I do have enough material. I have to edit it still. I do have enough material to, but I'm still trying to continuously make content, trying to improve the marketing, trying to figure out how to make this podcast better, just so I can improve on a lot of skills. I actually included in my college apps essays about this podcast because I love it so much. And even though I only have like 10 listeners or followers at least, I love them all very much. They're probably my friends, just like stalking me or whatever. But even though if no one listens to this, I enjoy making it very much. And it gives me an excuse to talk to famous comedians, uh, comedians who I really respect, comedians who I adore, comedians who I can just see on stage. I'm like, wow, I talked to that person for an hour. Yeah. But my interviewing skills have been better. It depends on the person, honestly, and I don't really mind if someone's like less talkative or more talkative. It's just it's so funny when people it's so funny when a lot of like some people have like they can just like talk and talk and talk. And I just ask like one question. But some are just like doing a direct answer and I'm like, "Oh shit. I have to create my own answers or my own questions and maybe explain myself." It just gets a little difficult and I'm still definitely in the process. Um but a lot of comedians have said that my interview skills are pretty good. So I can't tell if that's them being nice, but I'm going to take it. Yeah. I recently probably have only had like two interviews in the past like 2 weeks. Um, and one of them was okay. I thought it was going to be better, but it's okay. I don't think he enjoyed it very much, but you know, you win, you lose some. I, but at the other interview, I thought it was a really big score because he is probably one of the most accomplished comedians I've interviewed so far, and it's amazing, honestly. So I'm really excited for when those episodes are going to be released. I'm really excited for all my episodes to be released. I'm not going to lie because I put so much effort and work into each one of these, even though I don't really care if anyone listens to them. It's for myself, honestly. But I'm really excited, and let's just dive into this episode, I guess. So today I'm going to be talking with Aaron Abrams. He is currently an actor who has appeared in film and television and currently resides in LA. And although, as you might say, oh, he's not a comedian, you know, I initially knew him from a rather comedic role. It could be argued. I saw him first in Hannibal, and by the sound of it, yes, it's a very dramatic TV show. However, he and Scott Thompson was really one of the comedic breaks during the show, and I really liked their screen time, and I really wish they got more. Hashtag season 4 Hannibal. But I, after looking through his filmography, I found that he has gathered a variety of different roles, which includes comedic roles, and it was kind of just like an excuse for me to interview him because I don't know, it was I got to interview someone on Hannibal, which is like one of my favorite shows. But anyways, I really loved interviewing with him because he was so fun and such a sweet guy. Probably one of my best interviews. We actually talked for really long, although I cut it down a little bit. It's still probably one of my longest episodes, and I really hope you enjoy it. First question: how did you start out as a comedian, or like when did you start it out?
Firstly, I don't consider myself a comedian. I've never done stand up or anything like that. But
Yeah.
I will say, as an actor, I started um, my gateway into it was stand up comedy. I was gifted when I was in grade one a double cassette of Bill Cosby, which we don't talk about anymore. But at the time, I was obsessed. I never heard anything like that.
He's
I
still
think I
pretty
understood
good.
jokes.
So
Listen, if we can somehow separate it, then yeah. But well, I personally cannot.
yeah,
But I never heard jokes like that. I thought jokes were like joke punchline, joke knock knock, blah blah blah.
yeah.
And so he's just telling long, funny stories, and I became obsessed, and I memorized those tapes, and I would go in on show and tell day, and do 5 minutes of Bill Cosby that I had ripped off, and then it became George Carlin, and I just started absorbing it all the time. My parents would let me stay up all night and watch Comic Relief, which was at the time in the '80s an '80s telethon that went 24 hours, and it was just 24 hours of comedians. It was hosted by Robin Williams and Billy Crystal and Whoopi Goldberg, and they would buy me like snacks and candy, and they would let me stay up all night to watch these stand-up comics. And once a month we would go to the local in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto. We would go to the Laugh Resort, which we preferred to Yuck Yucks, and I don't think the Laugh Resort exists anymore. But we
Oh,
saw amazing comics before they were big time. We saw Stephen Wright and Mitch Hedberg a couple times, Ray Romano a couple times, and Brad Garrett. And so it was my first sort of obsession um, into storytelling, which eventually became acting.
would you ever want to do stand up later on in life?
Not later on in life, no. It's an intrigue. It's certainly a fascinating art form, and I would love to, I guess, be forced to try or something. Like if I got cast as a stand-up comic, then you're forced to. But like the challenge of it doesn't appeal to me. I almost have too much respect for getting up there and doing it. Like it just seems extremely difficult.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely does. Like dealing with like live heckles and things.
I'm not into that. I'm not into the sort of. There's a very confrontational aspect to stand-up. Like it's just you versus the room
Yeah.
in a way that I don't. I'd rather disappear into some sort of role.
Do you want to do any sort of like live performance, such as like sketches or like let's just say like a Broadway or something?
Would love to. I absolutely would love to. It's very difficult when you're sort of working in film. That's where I started. Like I went to theater school and I started doing plays, and then you sort of get a foothold into film and television, and it becomes hard to break out of that. Um, it just is a huge time commitment, and so it's a huge time commitment, and it's not, unfortunately, a huge um, financial stability situation.
Yeah.
You know, but I absolutely would love it. Also, my problem is my voice. So even in theater school, like I just have a voice, and I believe I took 4 years of daily voice classes, and if I have to speak to a huge room, it starts to get pretty barky. Like it doesn't. I start to lack range real quick.
Okay.
Um, so certainly playing, I can play black boxes, and I would love it. I used to love it, but like when I got to a big room, it became very challenging for my voice to sort of tell the story I wanted.
Okay, that makes sense. But I feel like a microphone would probably help with that, right?
Of course, just mic me up.
Yeah, just mic you up and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
So,
let's. I absolutely I would be there tomorrow. I'm always um, on my agents about doing any kind of live theater. I would love it.
maybe I'll see you live one day. You never know. You never know.
That'd be great.
So in previous interviews, you said that you really enjoy improv. as an actor who like usually uh performs very rehearsed lines, what makes improv appealing to you?
Um, well, I think there's just a lot of uh, I think it's the balance of two things. So I think that when you're in film and television, it's just the amount of preparation you can put into it is infinite, and so you can prepare everything and everything and everything. But when you're in front of somebody else, you've got to come to life, right? You can't just sit there with your strangled choices that you've made. You've got to sort of you got to put all your attention on the other person, and when they do something like I just finished a show called Children Ruin Everything, which was opposite two kids, and I never acted opposite kids before, but they're like, and this show does an amazing job of letting them be themselves, and so they're kind of like wild animals. They might do the line the way it's written, but they'll be doing something crazy with their hands, or they won't do it exactly or whatever, but you've got to just keep your eyes and ears open for that stuff and go where they want you to go, and that's sort of the what improv allows you. I think that once you've done all the prep of what your character wants and who your character is, then you can sort of just open yourself up to all the possibilities. That's the fun of it.
Yeah. Speaking of like children ruin everything, how was filming season 4?
I love that show. I had the best time ever. I love working with Kurt Smeaton, who's a guy who comes from sketch comedy, and he writes very personally from his life. So he's a beautiful, wonderful showrunner to have. I love working with Megan Rath, who's extremely funny, and these two kids, Michaela and Logan, are unbelievable talents. I just it's a gift to do that show. I've been playing, I came from comedy, but I essentially been doing 15 years of dramas, like just playing dirtbags and assholes for
Yeah.
15 years. And so, well, not that I'm complaining, I loved it, but it was so fun to get back to that kind of love forward. Kurt was involved with Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience, and so it's very much in line with those shows in terms of its tone and the kind of hilarious it is.
What was it like to like as the 4 seasons went on? Was there any like difference you could see in the children as they grew up?
Uh, well, yeah, but I think what's remarkable about I think that it's always tricky with a young actor that they never really become young professionals. Like it shouldn't feel like work to them, and that's partially up to us to make it sure like they're having fun all the time. It makes me very uncomfortable that they have to like work these hours and stuff, and so they are amazing at we cast them and they were kind of like wild animals, which was wonderful. And as they grew, they never lost that. I mean, they develop sort of skills and they understand uh, how editing works, and so how that affects your performance and marks and all those other things. That all those like little technical stuff that can really jam up people, especially a younger actor. But these kids just adapted and never lost what made them amazing to begin with. So that was the most remarkable thing to work with them. I can't wait to work with them forever and ever. I hope to work with them again one day.
That you guys are going to be long-term friends,
Absolutely.
and maybe a fictional father figure.
Listen, that's not for me to decide. I don't know. I'll just be their best of friend that I can be, and we'll continue to hopefully get to cast shows together over and over again.
Yeah. Um, for season 1, I heard that you guys had to film it during the pandemic. How
Mm.
was that, just in general, and how did that like impact the amount of like energy you brought onto like the scene? I would say.
I mean, nothing wasn't impacted by it. It ate up. I mean, just in terms of the making of the show, it eats up a ton of time, which is as valuable as anything else because they have to like douse the set with this cleanser and whatever they have to spray down the set every hour and a half or something. So it's like every hour and a half you lose 20 minutes. And you've got to you're bubbled with like I was only allowed to see Megan. Like I wasn't even allowed to see my mother. Like you can't like if I get COVID, then the whole show goes down. And
Yeah.
so they're just like strictest of rules. And you don't get like look, there's a thousand other ways. Like financially, it affects the show and all this other stuff. But really, the burden is that making film and TV is a team sport. It's really what I like about it, and you don't get a sense of like I don't get to eat with those guys. I don't get to eat with the crew. I don't get to like you don't get a sense of camaraderie the same way. So it's very difficult. And I'm really proud of that Megan and I uh, and the two kids at least managed to I think feel like a family in that first season because we were just thrown in there and been like go to work. Like there was no in-person chemistry reads or anything like that. It just was like you're a family now. You better act like it. Also, don't touch. Like it's just crazy.
Be a family, but not really a family.
Yeah, if you're gonna kiss your kids, it has to be on the top of the head. Like you can't hold anybody. There's no hugging. No, like it just was bananas. So it was very challenging. But that's the any challenging is welcome as long as you have a sort of an open mind about it. I think that it all makes it more interesting. And we found so much stuff within that I think in season two when that was lifted a little bit, we were really off to the races.
Yeah. I feel like definitely all of you guys going through the COVID guidelines and all that thing probably was like a bonding experience itself, I would say.
I mean, also that was coming off of like a year of for me just isolation, right?
Yeah.
Like so a lot of us like we really there was no social that had been ripped away. So now you're suddenly thrown into kind of a social situation, which is both good and bad. Like you feel rusty, but at the same time, there's immediate intimacy with who you're socializing with. Like in this case, Megan, because I just haven't done it with anyone in a year, right?
Yeah.
So and it was kind of a joy to be back at work, even though it was very difficult.
Yeah. When you were doing like any basically any let's just say film or like preferably comedy, I would say. Uh how often do you have like ad libs into the roles or is it mostly just like all the lines?
No, I gotta watch. Look, I think what I think happened, or what I noticed, is like after Wedding Crashers, everybody and their mother thought they could just ad lib the fuck out of everything, and it just led to a lot of bad habits and like a lot of it like lazy. Like I think you had a lot of actors show up on set being like, I want to make this more about me is kind of what it's about, and also I want to make it. Also, instead of doing lines, which is hard, laborious work, and instead of doing the script work, I'm going to come up with some funny make-em ups. And this isn't everybody. I'm generalizing, but there was sort of a trend. Everybody wanted to be Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn for a second, and I very much come from improv. That's my way in, and I love doing it as much as anybody. But it has to come out of the amount. You still can't not do the work. You have to do all the work, and in letting it go, there's a relaxation, and then you open yourself up to that stuff. You can't force it. You can't come in with plans. Um, so yeah, I think it's a real dangerous. To answer your question, I'm pretty loose, but I think it's my goal, or it's the job to make everything I say sound like it's improvised, whether it is or not. I think
Yeah.
I think I get accused of being a real. Uh, I improvise a lot of children and everything. We don't. It's just really good writing, and I think it's a testament to sort of the style they want the show, which is sort of a looser, sloppier style. But it's not a ton of improvising. If someone were to improvise, we'd be very open to it and we'd go for it. But it's really just a moment here or there. It's never a whole scene or a whole chunk.
Okay. Speaking of writing, even though you got your acting degree, why did you decide to do like screenwriting and producing in the late 2000s?
Um, it was always something I did on the side. It started from when I was doing theater and I would write plays to star in. It just led to another job for myself. And then I was became friends with a guy named Martin Garrow, and he was a writer. and he had seen a play. He had seen some of the plays I'd done, and he was like, "All your plays feel like they should be movies. Like you're writing plays, but it's not what you should be writing." And I was like, "Yeah, but if I write a movie, what am I gonna do? And have a movie script on my desk?" And he was just like, "No, if we like write something where it's just takes place in a couple rooms, we can cast our friends and blah 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 blah." And so that became the first thing I wrote, the screenplay I wrote, which was called "Young People Fucking," and it was very lucky. It just got made very quickly. Think Film, which is now defunct, but it came on board and they were like a real thing. They had done Half Nelson and Short Bus and a bunch of other cool Murder Ball and stuff, and so they came on board, and that movie became it opened hit in, I think in 2000 and whatever it was, 7 or 8, and so since then it became like movies are possible.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened, and it became, oh, I'll start taking writing jobs and see what happens. And I enjoyed it, and so it's never something that I don't want to do. You know, I fixate on an idea. I'm pretty um, like I get it's sort of the same guy who memorized entire Bill Cosby albums. Like I just get fixated on stuff. Sometimes I get fixated on an idea where the only way is to get it off of me and write it. And so that's where really writing comes from for me.
Yeah, I actually relate to that a lot because I'm also a type of person to fixate on things. And like I
Yeah.
dive into these like obsessions and it gets really bad. But like at the same time I'm enjoying myself like so much. So I'm okay with
You
it.
know, like it's fun. Like sometimes I get obsessed in like the bad way where I'm like, this isn't helpful, but there's something so nice about finding that thing that like this could be a flaw, but I like when you harness it, like it sounds like you're doing, and it turns into an obsession with, in your case, comedy, and then you turn that into a podcast, and like you just like when it starts producing fruit, then I don't know, being obsessed. All the most successful creative people I know are obsessed.
Yeah, I definitely think if I use it correctly, it should be pretty good, you know? Yeah. Speaking of obsessions, I read from an interview that you are also like a really big James Bond fan. And I'm a huge James Bond fan. I got obsessive with it for like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And this is just a random question, but what is your favorite film out of the franchise?
Oh, this is it. Now look, the reason I became obsessed, I think, was my father. It was the first time my father. I don't know where my mother was. Maybe she was. My father was like, "We're gonna stay up late. Live and Let Die is on." And I don't know what Live and Let Die is. I don't know what James Bond is. I don't know what spies are. I don't know what Harlem is. I don't know what voodoo is. I don't know what New Orleans is. There's a guy with a hook for an arm. Like there's kimonos and sharks and all that. Like it's just madness, right? Like the movie is madness. And so if that's your introduction, and also Roger Moore is much more kid friendly Bond.
Yeah.
Like that's your into this world where it blew my ass off, and I just became obsessed, and I watched them all. So for me, Live and Let Die has a special place in my heart. I just think it's so wackadoo and crazy. But I think the best two are On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Goldfinger.
Yeah,
But guy's my favorite.
okay. Do you have a favorite Bond actor?
I mean, Connery. I mean, Connery's a template, right? Like everything
Yeah.
else is you have to compare to Connery in order to, they're all good at. Roger Moore was really quippy, but he wasn't great on the romantic side or the action side, but he was charming and he was funny. Dalton was had a lot of emotional life, but wasn't particularly charming. Um, Daniel Craig was great at emotional life and great at beating people up. But Connery kind of had it all. Connery's suave. Like I don't know how sure, I don't buy necessarily Daniel Craig is some suave. Like in terms of all of it, to me, it's Connery.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Even though a lot of my friends are like, "Why are you watching like such old movies or like ancient movies?" They're great, I would say.
Yeah, that's one of the weirdest. It's so bizarre, and they invented the whole thing. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what a world they're inventing. It's pure madness. I was obsessed with the bad guys. I had a list of all the bad guys in my room,
Yeah.
and I would occasionally keep the order of my favorite bad guys. This is the kind of I like lists. This is now you're getting a little bit into my obsession. At one point, it was a grid that I had taped up of like movies, and then the bad guys, and then the henchmen, and then the way they died. It was pretty ridiculous.
What's your favorite Bond villain?
I mean, this is a trickier bit of business. For me, if we're going into henchmen,
Yeah.
I think, like Odd Job is the template. I don't like people love Jaws, but
Yeah.
I think it's cartoony, and I just think that he turns good. Anybody who turns good is disqualified. I'm not into it. It's you're boiling up a conflict between two people where he's like, how are you going to beat this guy? How are you going to beat this guy? And then if he just decides to turn good at the end, then there's no. It just feels like very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
That's why Maiden is also canceled
Okay.
on the list. Winton Kid is extremely weird and interesting, but I am often curious about what the tone of those two are supposed to be at the time.
Yeah.
Like if we're supposed to laugh at their sexuality, then they're disqualified.
Yeah.
I'm not positive that's true, but it's hard. It's I can't rule it out.
Yeah.
So Odd Job, and then Teehee is also I got no notes. That guy had a hook for an arm. He had a gimmick. He had an amazing look. Aviator, bald head, great death. I don't know. It's Odd Job first, and then Teehee second for me.
Yeah. I definitely, when I was looking at like Odd Job, I was like, that's iconic. Like,
That's iconic.
yeah.
It's exactly right. It's iconic.
Do you
Just henchmen. I mean, we can get into the bad guys, but like those are just the henchmen.
yeah, those are just the henchmen. Um I also like I enjoy looking at the bad guys more than like the good guys, honestly. Like it's like
It's what you want to say. They're the difference. Like every movie is Bond is the same.
yeah.
Like you can still like, oh, this time he's heartbroken or whatever, but he's the same. The reason the movie is different is sort of the geography, the bad guy's weird plot, and the bad guy's weird crew.
Yeah.
That's all the only hook to these things. And so I was obsessed.
Yeah, I'm always excited to see what new gadget he's getting, what place he's visiting, what new volcano he's going under to find a villain in. Like, it's just
Never
everywhere.
been to Toronto. I'm not even sure he's ever been to Canada, which seems like stupid.
I mean, he's a pretty fancy guy. He goes to very unique places.
When I wrote a fan fiction as a kid, he kicked a dude off a helicopter and he got impaled on the CN Tower. That was when I was a young boy, but I was like, this is what we were like. We have a thing. We have an impaling device. We can use it.
Oh, that's so funny. When you speaking of bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
you were in Hannibal, and
Amazing transition. I was wondering what was happening, and you did it. You pulled it off.
uh, in such a dark series like Hannibal, you and Scott Thompson were kind of like the comedic relief in the very
Mm.
dark scenes next to them. How did you was were you guys purposely trying to be funny, or like did it just come off as like more humorous than other people?
If you watch, it was never. I think that we were trying to find our way a little bit in those first few episodes. We just didn't want to be. We didn't want to conflict with the tone of the show. And we also didn't want to just be there as information giver people. So it was tricky, and I know that we were. It was really starting to fry our brain. And I remember there was one episode where Hetien, who's an amazing actress, wasn't there, and it was just me and Scott for the first time. Normally, it was three of us.
Yeah, Beverly wasn't there.
Yeah, Etienne was her character wasn't there. It was in somewhere else in the world of the. And so it was just me and Scott for the first time, and because of that, they shot us in a two shot. We were in the same frame, which is a comedy framing,
Yeah.
and noticed that, and I was like, oh, I don't know, you're in a comedy frame with Scott Thompson, like maybe let's try this. And that was, I think, the first time it started to click. Where I mean, if you watch that scene, it's there's a bit of mirroring. Like whenever he moves, I move. So there's kind of an energy in the frame. I'm kind of trying to, and it's bouncing off each other. Like he senses I'm doing it, and it sort of becomes a bit of a dance, and that becomes the template for how we go forward. And we sort of that was how we found our footing on that show, which is an amazing show.
Yeah, I
I'm so
love it.
fortunate. I'm so fortunate to have been a part of it. But it really felt for a while like all this amazing work is happening, and we're on this amazing show that's so visionary and wonderful. We just hope we're not the worst part of it.
You guys definitely aren't. That's what I'm saying for sure.
Very nice of you to say. Thank
I feel
you.
like
But
Chilton is probably up there.
he, yeah, everybody on that show is amazing. But yes, it was. I loved working with Scott Thompson. Also, he's such a comedic icon.
Yeah.
Um, and really never, just to say, I don't think he ever really got his flowers that he deserved, both as a comedic kind of genius and just really influential icon. I mean, he was the first out of the closet gay guy on television ever. Like, we don't talk about that for some reason. But when I would go to conventions with him, they'd sort of sit us next to each other. There would always be every hour or two somebody coming up to him with a stack of like a diary entry of a letter of thank yous and very emotional to meet him. Like he was very important to a lot of people.
Yeah, I definitely
And
feel
very
like he's really underrated. Like I honestly, this is probably lacking on my part, but I didn't know him until Hannibal, and I was like, he was very funny in that, and I was like, I got to look at this person.
yeah. I mean, check out Kids in the Hall. It's a really influential show for a lot of people, and they're even their new stuff on Amazon. I know that Amazon handcuffed them a lot, but they still kind of they still have edge and they're still cool. Which I think when you're 60, that's really tough. Like being a real avid comedy watcher, that's something that unfortunately starts to happen sometimes.
Yeah,
Sketch comedians get older and it's not quite right anymore.
yeah, it
Um,
doesn't hit the right spot.
those guys, they're all still punk rock. It's great.
Okay, I'll definitely check it out. This is going to be a very weird question, but technically, your character had worked with Hannibal Lecter for a lot of the times. What is one good thing about Hannibal?
One good thing?
One good thing.
Oh, there's plenty of good things. He dresses amazing.
Yeah,
He's very handsome, but also like he's very polite.
that's true.
Won't tolerate rudeness is really one of the staples of him.
Yeah, he
And he
eats the
killed
rude.
a lot of bad. I mean, you look at all the people he killed on that show. I know he killed some good ones, but most of them were bad.
Yeah,
Cry for Abigail Hobbs. Oh, she she was a murderer. Just because she was like a very like she was a very lovely girl. And so who cares? It's he killed mostly terrible people.
yeah. Most of the people shown on the show was pretty bad, I would say.
Chilton alone deserves credit.
Yeah.
Chilton's a real fuck.
Oh God, I hate him so much.
Also, Let Me Live. Does that count? That counts. That counts.
Yeah, I don't know how
That
he's
was
still
not the
alive.
most.
I don't know. Yeah. Did any of the scenes really get to you in Hannibal when you were working on them?
Were they so gross?
Yeah.
The makeup department did a great job. Sometimes when they would use real people and dress them up, it was the scariest to me. So a lot of people bring up like the mushroom people, but those were like dummies. Like close up, the scariest guys for me were the beehive lobotomy guys. There was that was there was a scene. I think it's mostly cut, but like certainly when we're kind of operating that one guy and he's still alive, like that's an actor, and they
Yeah.
just put like honey all over his eyes, and he's like lobotomized, and it's disgusting. We're operating his brain with a beehive in his head. But when me, Lawrence, and Scott would go to a greenhouse, I think we're trying to clear out the spot, and there's like a few of those guys roaming around, and there's like honey pouring out of their mouth,
Yeah.
and their heads have been turned into beehives, and that was the worst by far, I thought, for me.
Okay. Yeah, definitely as a person watching it, I'm not a big fan of horror stuff. The only reason I watched a movie, I mean, TV show was because of Mads, because I was a fan of him before. But a lot of this, like the scenes, like there's the totem pole of humans, and like it
Yeah,
that creep. Like I still cannot look at that till this day. Like it's so creepy to me.
Polo was very gnarly, and the same token, that eyeball was very gnarly when they
Oh, like
sewed all
all
the
the
pieces
eyes,
together.
like not the all the eyes.
They were sewn together, so he had to rip himself off, and his skin is coming out. That was also really
Yeah,
gross.
I was like, and him and Hannibal putting the actual creator into it.
Yeah,
Oh,
really gross.
I
Really
was
gross.
like,
We only got one note about the grossness on that show from the network, or not even about the grossness. We only got one note period from the show about the show, which was there was that guy who would skin backs and he would flay them open like angel wings, and
oh
he would
yeah, yeah.
pose people on the ground in like these praying positions. And they said that they could. The note from network was like, "Listen, we can see a bit of butt crack on this one guy. Can we CGI more blood into the on his butt so we don't see the butt crack?" They never
That's the
pushed
one
back
thing they
against
were
the
worried
violence.
about.
That was violent show on network television history by a mile.
Yeah, I was like, that's one of the most gory and weirdest TV shows I would say for sure.
So weird. But
But it's
dramatic and kind of beautiful and funny, I think. I don't know. Have you ever seen Mads do comedy? He's
um
really funny.
I've I've seen like his bloopers.
There's a movie called Men in Chicken that he did. That's a comedy.
oh, with the really
You should
far
check out.
hair, the hairline was really far back.
Yeah, he looks terrible. He's got a hair lip,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's just like the worst. But he's very funny.
Yeah, I've seen some of his Danish films, but I wouldn't call them comedy.
Right, right.
Yeah, but yeah, Mads is amazing. How'd you feel as Mads for a Bond villain?
The greatest. I mean, like we play poker on set. Sometimes one time we played poker with him. Like you're playing poker with the guy.
You're with
Like
the
it's
guy.
suddenly you're in a Bond book. It's the best.
Yeah, I actually have like a Funko Pop of like him like over there somewhere as Lashif. So, uh, but yeah. Anyways, if there was like a season 4 reboot of Hannibal, which I know a lot of the other actors are hoping for, would you be willing to do it?
I love those guys. I mean, and also just like the quality, everything Brian Fuller makes, I'd come running. I just think that he doesn't make anything that isn't my favorite thing ever. Also, like Hugh is the greatest. Like what Hugh does in that role is unbelievable to me. That he's playing, um, uh, he's doing so many things at once. Like he's playing a guy who's having sort of a nervous breakdown about being able to think like a serial killer while thinking like a serial killer and acting like the serial killer. Like he's solving crimes while acting like the person, but is having a nervous breakdown at the same time about being that other person. Like it's so much. It's an impossible task on paper, and to watch him do it um, so effortlessly. Both those guys are just very relaxed, very effortless, and really, I can't say enough about them.
Yeah.
Greatest guys.
I feel like all the characters on Hannibal are really complex. Like they're definitely not. They definitely also like change as the seasons go on, and it's very like I feel like if I just skip one episode, it's like oh, what just happened? Like what did I miss?
You can't start in. I know a lot of people are just like, oh, I just started in the middle. I think because it's a network show, they think they can do
Yeah,
that. It's not the case of the week. You're not going to know
you
what the
can't.
hell's going
If
on.
you're gonna start, you have to start from the beginning. Yeah, that's definitely a big thing. Um, yeah. Would you say Hannibal is probably like one of the darker TV shows you've done or comp films?
Yeah. I don't. The darker TV shows of all time. I think. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, it's hard for us to think of something darker than that.
yeah,
Um, Certainly, as a TV show, yeah. I don't. I can't think of. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's certainly violent shows, but they're nothing like that.
yeah. Um, did you did you like Hannibal before you actually got into the role?
Obsessed, but it was the first horror movie I saw. Like I was watching. I become pretty into slasher horror, which is like the fun kind of horror for kids. Like it's almost for kids. Like
Yeah,
Jason and all that stuff. So I was really into Jason and I don't know, Texas Chainsaw, I guess, and really stuff like that. And Manhunter was on. My brother started watching Manhunter, and I don't know if you remember how it opens, but like it starts with like a just your point POV of like a flashlight breaking into a house and creeping up the stairs very quietly and opening a bedroom door and shining it on a married couple until they slowly wake up and look at the lens and they start to get afraid and then it cuts and just as Manhunter and I was like, that's the scariest shit I've ever seen. I didn't know horror could be like that, like for adults and thoughtful and dramatic and
Yeah.
it's funny that there's serial killers in the world and that they can there's this detective who can think like them. Like again, it was kind of like living my die all over again. It was blowing my ass off in terms of just new ideas.
Yeah. I
I'm
definitely
too young to watch.
Yeah. I definitely after watching the Hannibal TV show, I was like, okay, I want to dive into like the sources. So like I like bought all the books and started reading them. Were actually really good. And I also like watched like Silence of the Lambs, and I truly realized I'm like Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are like so good at the role. Like they're so different from the show, like the people on Hannibal, but they're also yet so good in their own different way.
That's also the crazy thing about Maz is that he can take this role that's like very iconic, where it's not like James Bond, where it's like you can have your own spin on it or whatever. Like Anthony Hopkins is Hannibal Lecter. That's what people think of, and for him to show up and be like, "I'm also Hannibal Lecter," and people go like, "I don't know, man," and then for him to do it and be like, "Oh, that's a completely different version that also makes sense to me and can hold just as an iconic place." There's two iconic Hannibal Lecters, and that seems impossible.
Yeah, it's so weird how I'm like, it's like I don't know, I wouldn't know what my favorite one is because they're both so good in their own ways.
Really different, yeah,
Yeah. Have you read the books?
yeah, yeah. Or I read Silence of the Lambs, and I read Hannibal. I don't think I never read Hannibal Rising.
Yeah,
Oh, and I read Red Dragon.
Red
So yeah,
Dragon.
how many books are there? Four.
There's four. I think it's
I
like
didn't
Red
read the
Dragon,
young one. I've
Signs of the Lambs, Hannibal, Hannibal Rising.
seen Hannibal Rising the movie yet either. Is that good?
I haven't watched it yet. Because I always want to read the book before the movie, and I haven't read because I know how the ending of Clarice and Hannibal, and I don't know if I exactly want to read that.
Yeah,
So
I kind of the same.
so I don't know if I want to read Hannibal or Hannibal Rising.
Like I don't know Hannibal's origin story. Kind of like I don't. I'm not craving it. I don't want those answers. He's scary because I don't know where this man, how this man manifested itself.
Exactly. Like that's the whole part. That's the whole thing about like Hannibal is just like you don't know where this all comes from. Like we don't need the origin story. We just need to see like it's like a great. I love to obsess over things I know I like, and it's like I don't want to know the other stuff.
It spoils the mystery. I think his unknowableness is partly why he's so scary. I don't want to hear Jason's backstory either. Although I guess you kind of do. Like I know enough about it.
Yeah,
I don't need to know how he was resurrected and why he's on. Who cares?
yeah. I don't think they dive into Hannibal that much because the whole point is to keep the mystery of the person, and there's not much you can like. There's so much he knows, like different languages, how to do different skills, and like cooking. I don't think you can like.
Kind of the surprise of him is he can whip out a new skill, and you're like, oh god, he can do this too. But I don't know. We haven't seen the movie.
We
We haven't
haven't
read
seen
the
the movie.
book.
We
Maybe
can't say
Hannibal Rise.
anything. So
You know,
maybe I'll see the movie just so I can like fact check ourselves.
yes. I will also be doing that.
Do I want to watch? Okay. Anyways, let's go back to comedy. All right. Um, what is your just in general? What is your favorite like comedy show or like movie? You would say.
The TV show. Okay. Well, look, I mean, Seinfeld is great,
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to say something cool, but like, it's really great. I loved Cheers growing up real hard. Um, that was my sort of vintage of growing up television, sitting in front of the TV. That was the big sort of event TV show when it would come on. It was like shut it down. We got to watch Cheers, and then Night Court would come on after that, which was sort of like a much more juvenile, joyous, chaotic thing. And it was very funny. Um, what else? Like so yeah, multicams of that era. Like I think they peaked around 2000 for me. That's when Seinfeld and it sort of Seinfeld Friends. Everyone loves Raymond, which I think is really good. Where they're just like that's the pinnacle of the family sitcom. I think where they're just like let's just have a whole episode in the kitchen. Like it's just really well done and it's really amazing and so tight and weird and funny. I think and then multicams comes around after 2000. Frasier's another one, and then they all come to go away at the same time, and then we figure out multicams, and so then it becomes 30 Rock and The Office and Arrested Development and Modern Family, and I feel like I'm missing one huge one, but that to me now is essentially that's like a whole different thing, and it became very exciting to watch those shows because it felt like those shows had a newness to them. Like I
Yeah.
don't think multicam really figured it out until Arrested Development, where they're like, we can cram in 10 times more jokes
Yeah.
than or a single cam. Like you can't cram in 10 more jokes than a multicam can. Like um, it's just so tight and so electric, and you can harness a performance in a different way. So those are the shows that sort of that spoke to me.
Do you have any shows you like?
Shorzy, as a comedy, I will watch that, which is sort of an unheralded. It's the guys who did Letterkenny, but Shorzy's a little bit more for me. It's just 6 half hours. It's basically Slapshot, the TV show, and I really think those guys are funny. Um, what else am I watching? I mean, right now it's just like uh, I kind of want everything. Schitt's Creek and Ted Lasso are great, but I just feel like I want like Fallout. Like I want something that's funny and crazy and adventure. I just want stuff I've never seen before. That's 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 everything. I think maybe it's because there's a lot of reboots and all this, but I want stuff that I've never seen and feels like extremely imaginative.
Yeah.
So, I would never have said that Fallout was my jam necessarily, but like it is now. Like I just want something wild and nutso and that there's funniness in it.
Have you watched the Deadpool Wolverine movie yet?
I haven't seen that yet. No.
Yeah, I really want to go watch it, but I need to find a time to see it. And personally, I need to catch up on Wolverine movies because he has so many.
Yeah, I don't remember what the last one was. The last one's Logan.
I think so. I'm not sure. He hasn't
Okay,
done
that's kind of
he
the
has
only one I remember, so that works out well for me.
yeah, he hasn't done it in a while, so I don't know. Have you watched Only Murders in a Building?
Yes, I watch Only the Murders in the Building, but like those guys are again like I like a mystery a whole lot, and like Steve Martin and Martin Short. Those are the movies I grew up on. I mean, Steve Martin's run from The Jerk to 85, maybe like Planes, Trains, Automobiles, where he does 8 classics like in a row. Like Man with Two Brains, and The Jerk, and Three Amigos, and Roxanne. It's probably 87 we're getting to now. Planes, Trains, Automobiles. Like that's a run of comedy movies that to me are all 5 star. They are amazing to me. So that was the greatest comedy run of movies of all time to me.
Yeah, I sadly I only got into Steve Martin like a few months ago, but
Mm.
I as an obsessive person, I like deep dove into like all his old material. So, but I really love like his old stand-up shows like Wild and Crazy Guy and just like Three
It was definitely one of
Amigos.
the best. 4 out.
Yeah. And even his like modern shows such as like I also watched his documentary about him, which was very cool. Um, but his also have you seen his the Steve Martin Short stand up they've been going on like a tour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they work so well off each other.
They're they're
It's
they're
great.
like they're
I think
like a match made in heaven, I would say.
agreed. They because they also bring a lot of joy out of each other, which is just like kind of what you want. Um, it's the same a little bit with Nick Kroll and Mulaney. Like when they work together, there's just like they're there's something about it where I have no idea, but they feel like they're on cloud nine, and so they're in a zone and they're a machine that's operating as one thing, but also they're having it seems like the time of their life, and so you're just sort of happy to be there with them.
Yeah.
And there's just it's just electric. There's just two people who probably know each other better than anybody.
Yeah. It's very interesting to see Martin and Short because I feel like Steve Martin has definitely gotten, I mean, as he's gotten older, I guess, he has less energy to give. He gives less energy
Mm.
compared to what he was like in like the 1980s or something. And it's very interesting because Martin Short kind of like is the person who gives the energy, but also Steve Martin absorbs it, but also yet like uses it to his advantage. So it's like very nice, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're right. I think he's figured out like he was such a physical comedian that for him to adapt his act by taking the energy he was creating by himself and making it more of a dynamic between two people energy is the way to sort of maintain that sort of Steve Martin feel to it was really smart.
And also his like banjo playing. It's very funny to me that he's doing banjo playing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's just
He's
on
got
so many
his
side quests.
so many side quests.
Yeah. Are you gonna watch the new season when it comes out? The new Only Murders in a Building?
I still haven't finished the last one, the Streep season, but yes, I mean, also just the way those seasons are cast, they just because everybody wants to work with those guys, they get to. They're always just the casts are
They're
just
so
over the
stacked.
just overflowing, so stacked, and so it's really an embarrassment of riches when you watch that show.
It's like Paul Rudd, Meryl Streep. There's like so many people, and I'm like, and it, like I've seen like the new like promos for the new season, and I'm like, how are they just getting more and more? Like, they're just getting the whole field up like in that show.
I mean, you want to shoot in New York? You want to hang out with Steve Martin and Martin Short? I mean, that sounds like a great deal. You tell people where, when, and where they have to be. They can get anyone they want.
I mean I mean I would do that in a heartbeat. So
Yeah, yeah,
you know I can see why people are go there.
for
uh,
sure.
so like when you in your film career, you definitely have a lot of shows who have like a lot of money to spend on things, and there's also definitely low budget films. What would you say is like the biggest difference between those two, or is there a significant difference between?
Just on the film side, between like big budget film uh,
Yeah,
and little budget film, or with TV as well.
I guess TV too.
Well, yeah, like I would say the nice thing about micro budget stuff is that, like, yes, it's harder, um, but it's somebody's baby. It means the world to somebody. Like it's hard for you, whoever wrote it and is doing it, whoever's directing it, whatever. It means everything to them, and so. It, like as I said before, like this thing has to be like a team sport, otherwise it doesn't really work. And those are by necessity a team sport. Like it needs everyone to pitch in and needs everyone to help. And so I love them. I'm always there for a new filmmaker or something like that. Like they always have an energy to them that I appreciate. And even if they don't necessarily turn out, I feel like I'm a better person for it, or it's reminded me why I like doing this stuff. There's a team aspect. There's a like we're not going to move on until everyone's happy kind of
Yeah,
idea. Where sometimes you're doing TV and it's on a conveyor belt, and you need to like a big budget show, like has delivery dates. It has like you're not going to go over to get a certain moment right. Like you got a couple cracks at it, and then whatever you did, that's what's happening. Like that's it. There's no uh, adjustments, and it can get a little weird. Which I like too. There's something about like it's showtime
yeah.
about those kinds of things. But it does feel weird that all this work went into pre-production writing and the meetings and the meetings and the meetings that happen to get to the floor, and then when you get to the floor, it's like, and then you do it twice and you're moving on. Like it doesn't feel right, and I just feel like sometimes, certainly with film, it doesn't feel like that most of the time. Um, and certainly with micro budget film, like it's going to be uh, it's a passion project for somebody, and so that's gonna be instilled with that.
Yeah, I definitely get that. When you're is there do you feel like it's more stressful when you have less takes, or like you can't screw up as much?
But it's not about screwing up. It's about there's always 18,000 ways you can do it, and so I can choose the way I think is best, and sometimes I'm very like that's the way it should be. But sometimes things come to light, and you're like, oh, what if we went down that avenue a little bit? What if I acted this way before this happens? And then like you're still like playing around. You don't often get rehearsals. That's the other thing that micro budget movies will do is you'll get a lot of rehearsals sometimes. But and so you're kind of figuring it out. You're dancing for the first time with someone. Because when you have two takes, it's not as fun.
Yeah.
Like I want to, if they do something crazy, I want to follow my impulse and go down that road with them for a second. But if you only have two takes, you might be like, oh, I'm gonna have to pretend that I'm gonna have to ignore that. Blah blah blah. Like if somebody drops a coffee cup, if we had a bunch of takes, we might follow that and be like, oh, you dropped it, blah blah, and then like make a mess, come out, and it might be a beautiful mess that makes the scene come alive a little bit. But if there's only two takes, we're gonna have to pretend that coffee cup thing didn't happen because we need a clean one and we
Yeah.
need to go.
Not as much bloopers.
Yeah, but bloopers, like there's 1,000 mini bloopers that are in things that are
Yeah.
the reason a scene.
Yeah,
Like if
definitely.
we come in and do it exactly as they planned it, it would be pretty boring.
That's true. That's true. Uh what would you say is the most tiring thing as an actor? Because I know like some scenes, certainly like when you're eating food, you have to eat it multiple times, and it definitely you've done films have to do with eating, I guess, like such as like Hannibal, who's like a really great cook and all that stuff, and also just like even just like nose to tail, you had to deal
Mm.
with cooking. What is the most? Do you think? What is the most tiring thing or tiring like type of scene to do?
Worst type of scene. Um, I guess like it's physically something. It, I guess the most tiring thing about filmmaking or TV in general is that it's hurry up and wait. So you get these adrenaline spikes all throughout the day. You'll get 100 of them. Like every take, you might get one, but then you're sitting around for 40 minutes or an hour or 20 minutes or whatever, and then you get up and then you get down, and so it's about monitoring your energy levels. Like for me, if I start eating candy, that's a problem because now it's really going to start fucking with my spikes. And or if I have a coffee or something, like you just got to sort of monitor that so you have energy for 14, 15 hours when you need it. Like you can't just be like, it's go time and now I'm too tired. Like you have to sort of be ready in an even thing. And so by that rationale, I think the answer is any scene that require like if I had to run down the block
Yeah.
and then they reset and I got to run down the block and I reset and I got to run down the block, it becomes very difficult to manage my energy levels for the rest of the day
Yeah.
because now I'm physically tired.
It's like doing a workout and then trying to do something after that.
Something like that, I guess, is the worst.
Oh
The
yeah.
eating stuff, I mean, if you need a spit bucket, they'll put a spit bucket, they'll hide it there or something. But like, I don't like. I've had to do an eating scene in a movie once, and I had to eat brownie and down a glass of milk, and I just vomited the hell out of myself. Like after it was over, after like 8 takes of that, you're just throwing up. But then after that, it's like fine, you're back to normal. Like it's not fun, it's not my favorite, but like
Yeah,
eating isn't as bad as I don't think running.
that's true. I'm okay with eating, but running, not really.
Yeah. Just because it'll like I don't know what it becomes my energy levels become a little bit out of my control, and so much energy is put into maintaining an energy level.
Yeah, that's definitely true. What would you say your dream gig would be?
We talked about a Bond villain before. I don't. I mean, that would be just because it's the first thing that made me love movies was Bond movies. That
Yeah.
was I got that box set. I watched them over and over and over again. So that, and I had the list of bad guys in my room. Like that would be the dream, dream, dream. But like that's the nice thing about being kind of a fan of movies and television is like it's all a dream. Like I've never done a multicam. That would be a dream in itself because that's also a thing I grew up on with Cheers and Cosby Show and all those other things. Or um, like I also grew up like all those Bruce Willis movies from the 80s and 90s and like all those action movies and like westerns. I went through a period where I was obsessed with westerns and like closed room mysteries, like those Agatha Christie-ish things. Like there's so many movies that I was like you became obsessed with and just like watched all of them
Yeah.
that if I was ever put in any of those, it would be like I was at fantasy camp. And I try and find that with all the roles. Like the fact that I just did a family comedy, I truly never thought I would do that. Like it didn't feel like that's where my career was going.
Yeah.
It's not a family comedy; it's like a comedy about parenting
Yeah.
for, but it's still like lovely and loving in a way that I was like, I don't. This isn't where my career is going. I got my guy who swears a lot and is yelling and occasionally gets punched in the face.
But that just means you have a very impressive acting range.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. uh I'm just wondering, since you've lived in Toronto and LA, what is the is there any difference between the two, like I guess comedy or acting field on in these two large cities?
In terms of the comedy scene, I mean, it's hard for me to say because I don't live in Toronto. When I was in the comedy scene, it was so booming. Um, it was like one of the first things I started was I hosted a sketch comedy night, and it was uh, um, Thomas Middleditch was in there, Nathan Fielder was in there, Katie Crown, Graham Wagner, uh, Brendan Gall, so many amazing, talented people. Ninety Hayes, they Chris Locke, like they all sort of became they had careers in comedy after that. Like we're all kids, but they all blew up, and it was a fantastic time. It just felt like all these new voices and all these new things. So I can't comment on. I assume that still happens. Toronto is just like a rich comedy sort of vessel um, for hilarious people. Uh, but Kurt is a product out of that. Like our showrunner is a product out of that scene.
Yeah.
And in LA, it's a hard thing. It's a weird city because it's an industry town, right? So like
Yeah.
everybody's kind of in the mix, and I think that it's not like my feeling of it, and this is maybe less so about the comedy scene, but it's a little bit. It's like an anti New York, where I think in New York everybody's really trying to stand out, whereas in LA it's a lonely place. It's not a walking town. It's a quiet kind of vibe. It's sprawling. That mainly it's lonely for people, and so they're trying to fit in. Like in LA, you'll often see groups of people out for a night together, and they're all dressed the same. You would never see that in New York. In New York, there'd be the backwards hat guy, there'd be the vest guy, there'd be the leather jacket guy. It's like Sex and the City there all the time. There's different types. The friend groups are all everybody is their own thing, almost to a point where they're peacocking weirdos. But like God bless them. And here it's a little bit more like I just want to find my people and I want to listen to what's on the radio a little bit. And so it's a little bit maybe a little bit more. I would say it's the comedy scene here, from what I've seen, is a little bit more mainstream. But like when something comes to town, like Stamp Town, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, which is a comedy show. It tours. It's a lot from New York, but they come here, and then it blows everyone's asses off. Like it just when there's new voices that emerge from here, I just think that this town really goes nuts for them.
That's actually really nice because it's like it's very welcoming to new people, I would say.
And there's like I shouldn't say it's more mainstream. I think that like the Rory Scovel's and there's a lot of cool people like the Elysian, which is a theater just down the street, is always has interesting comics, and I think there's a real clowning kind of boom that's happening. Stamped Down is a perfect version of that, um, uh, Natalie Palamides, or she had that one woman show called Nate on Netflix that I can't suggest enough. But it comes from these clowning schools. These people have been in clowns. So they're doing a lot of like character stand up, and it is amazing. I love it. I just think it's always surprising. I think a lot of stand up comedy. If you're going to do it in a way that's down the middle, I think we all understand the math of it a little bit. And so when somebody comes up with a whole identity
Yeah.
to do it, it becomes particularly riveting to me and very surprising. I just think surprising and comedy go hand in hand for me. And I just so somebody like Natalie Palamides is really really funny to me.
What would you say if I were to visit LA? I've only went there once, and I was only there for a few days, so I only got to see like I guess the main parts of it. What are some more rather underrated or just places you think I must go to the next time I come?
You went to I assume you did stand up comedy. So you went to like sort of West Hollywood, sort of where all the stand up is, like the whatever it's the stand up places are called. But you probably like there was always famous people playing at those stand up places. Elysian is a great theater. You should check out whatever's playing there. That's in Silver Lake. That's where I live. I think Silver Lake is great. It's kind of like the Brooklyn of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
A little bit. It trades in cool a little bit, which is a downside, but also an upside because I don't know. I like things that are cool. Like
Yeah.
it's not so bad. Um, Downtown, I mean, has great places to eat. It has the Last Bookstore. That's a crazy, amazing thing. People love the Getty, but also the Broad downtown is a really amazing museum. Uh, um, I'm it's LA. It's just essentially it's like 25 cool small towns that all have like kind of 15, 20 minutes of crap in between them of nothing. But if you just pick a couple, and like if you go to Little Japan, or if you go to the Valley, or if you go to Culver City, like there is like an afternoon of stuff there that is fun. You just have to sort of research which ones of the 25 weird places that they have here. It's just like so spread out.
Yeah. It's such a big area, I would say. Yeah.
It's not
Hmm?
well organized. It's sprawling in a real haphazard kind of way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I'll make sure to come to Silver Lake, was it?
Yeah, Silver Lake.
Silver Lake. I'll come visit you.
Great. We'll go see a show at the Elysium.
Yeah, for sure. This is the last question. What is some advice you would give to someone who wants to do acting or start in comedy? I would say.
Um, well, I guess I would say that you have to do it. It's simple. Like, um, there are classes. I'm still in classes. Like I just think that's absolutely a way to sharpen and also just to find yourself. Like I think that you have to find yourself a little bit in order to bring yourself to this work, and it feels like I think if you want to be an actor or if you want to be a stand-up comedian, especially if you want to be a stand-up comedian, I would think it's hard, right? And I think the allure of it is laughter and clapping and ovations and money or fame or whatever the thing. But if that's the reason you're doing it, you're probably not going to succeed. It has to. You have to love the shit. You have to love bombing in a weird
Yeah,
way. You have to love auditioning and not getting it. You have to love like if you're a musician, you have to love lugging your fucking bass guitar everywhere you go. Like you have to kind of love rehearsal. You have to love all the crap. So you have to love getting the shit beat out of you in classes. You have to kind of learn to love all that stuff. And so you have to start with that stuff. And that's how you'll find out if you love it. love going to a class and not knowing what the hell you're doing, and slowly getting better and better and better. And it's also just how you're going to find your own voice and what you specifically can bring to it that's special. Everybody wants to be in these fields because they seem exciting, or they seem like they're almost like therapeutic for people. They're like, I'm gonna share myself. It's like, well, but you have to figure out what that is, what you can bring.
That's a great answer to a great question.
I agree. It was a great question.
I will take that advice. So I don't
Yeah,
plan.
if you'd like to do stand up or act.
I haven't ventured much into it because I only got into this whole shenanigans like a year or two ago. But I want to try stand up.
But you're already doing a big part of it, right? Which is absorbing all of it that you can. Like that's it's always weird to me when I see uh like you're not going to meet a stand-up comedian who doesn't know who Nate Bargatze is. Like he's going to have seen everything.
Yeah.
Like he's going to have to have heard Bill Cosby albums and listen to that Steve Martin album from 1970, whatever. Like he's going to have to have delved in and become obsessed. Like that's just part of it.
I'm halfway
And
there.
sometimes you see actors like, I don't really watch anything, and you're like, yeah, I can tell. I guess like it's certainly like for film and TV, maybe you can get away with it, but certainly for theater, you can't. You have to go to theater. You have
Yeah.
to watch theater if you're gonna do theater. You kind of have to be obsessed with actors the same way. It's all. You know, if you love a thing, you want to fill up. I'll say this. This is the best advice I ever got. It was from my grandfather. From a very young age, he just said the whole secret to life was finding something that you love doing and then dedicating everything you have to becoming good enough at that thing that people pay you to do it. It just was like, you know how many people in this world have a job they hate? That's
Yeah.
so much of their life. It's
Yeah.
so much. They work in a cubicle, or whatever, and they don't, maybe they don't hate it, but they don't get anything from it that's like filling their soul. And they get that from their family or their vacations or from music or from hobbies or whatever. But those are all side things. If you can make your side thing your main thing, then you've done it.
Yeah.
You're happy. And in order to do that, you kind of have to just work your ass off at that thing. You kind of have to develop obsession.
Yeah. When a side quest goes too much, that's when you know it's worth it.
Well, who's to say your side quest can't be your main quest? Who said that? Who says any of these things? That's to me that's the whole secret. I mean, there's so many people who are. And then you find out later that there was like a genius painter, but they only ever did it in their attic because they were a secretary and they didn't feel like they could quit or whatever happened. Like it just is all the stories are all over the place. Somebody finds their uncle's shoebox full of photographs and their fucking genius art pieces of art, but he never told anybody because he just sort of was like, I don't know, I'm a mailman. It's nothing against mailmen or nothing against secretaries if that's where your passion is. But
Yeah. I definitely will try going into much more of this stuff. I'm currently underage, so a lot of the venues I can't go to begin with. So it's a little difficult for me. But yeah, so
there's cover stuff online. I mean, there's no shortage of material for you to check out.
yeah, there's always new things to look at. That's what I'm saying.
It's content galore.
Exactly. It's a bit concerning, but also great. Yeah. Well, it was nice meeting you.
Just meeting you.
Yeah.
This was really great.
How'd you think of my interviewing skills?
6 minutes of tight 6 minutes.
Yeah. How'd you think of my interviewing skills?
Yeah, listen, you killed it.
Thank you. Thank you. I asked that purely for compliments.
Oh yeah, no, I heard you. You set it up. That was even that alone was a great question. Your question about how good your questions were.
I only ask great questions. That's all I do.
I mean, that's the word on the street about you. That's what I had heard, and you did not disappoint.
I hope to see you sometime in person. Maybe we can hang out. I never know.
Absolutely, let's do it.
It's going to be weird to have a really huge age gap, but it's okay.
We'll see a show. We'll sit in separate sides of the theater and then discuss it afterwards. It'll be fun.
Just so no scandals come up. All right. I hope to see you in person, as I've said, and I want to talk to you again. It was really nice obsessing
Thanks,
over
Natalie.
things. Uh,
Yes, keep your obsessions going. Keep those fires alive. I support it.
yeah. If I have a new obsession, I will let you know.
Please do.
All
And
right.
check out, if you haven't looked at Natalie Palomini's one man show on Netflix, it's great.
All right. I'll be sure to find that out. All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much for listening to What a Comedian. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Aaron Abrams. Um, yeah, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, just let me know. Shoot me an email or text me on Instagram. I don't care. Uh, but let me know if you have anyone I want to interview. And see you next time.